So I think in our story you'll hear some definite similarities. Back in 2018, our congressional seat was empty after the passing of our longtime congresswoman, who our chapter had met with many times. This was before my time at CCO, and actually had made very little progress with. She was a big fan of cap and trade, and we want to talk about carbon fee dividend. Despite all the other things we loved her for, we were looking forward to a clean slate with a new representative. And there was a politician from the state government who was an obvious candidate. We were in a blue district, an obvious Democratic candidate that we had our eye on, and we tried to reach out to even before the election happened. So it so happened that our community had a March for Science back in 2018. Maybe you remember those. There was a lot of concern back then, and still is about that. But there was an expo afterwards, and two of us were tabling. I was one. I was still relatively new to CCL, and my tabling partner and I were standing there, and we saw him walk in with a local politician. And we thought, what a wonderful get to talk to her. So the person who was with came by first, and she asked us who we were and what we did, and she got really interested as we started in our discussion. And so she disappeared, and we said to each other, we wonder if she'll say anything to him. And 2 minutes later, he was right in front of us, and he introduced himself and said, so, what do you guys do? So, my tabling partner, I was still relatively new, she launched into a perfect laser talk. Remember laser talks? We practiced those on carbon fee and dividend. It was really spot on. My job was right. She did such a great job. And he asked a few questions. I managed to blurt something out about the Climate Solutions Caucus, so I got something in after her excellent job. And we gave him a couple of pamphlets and handouts, and off he went. So later that year, the campaign started up, and we had a team that reached out to both candidates, Republican and Democrat. And when they came back from the meeting with the Democrat, the report was that they had a very in-depth policy discussion. He was very interested. And there was a whiteboard involved with graphs and things like that. And we had better get ourselves ready if he won. And he did win. So the following spring, we arranged a meeting with our new representative, and we decided we had better bring the A team and we better be ready. We had a very nice discussion. He asked a lot of questions. His biggest concern was what to do with the dividend. His idea was, to invest that money, and a lot of Democrats think this way. Let's invest that money. We want to protect these communities that could be hurt by rising energy prices. Let's do it by funding energy upgrades and the things that they'll need. And we, armed with our CCL information, we're coming back with all the reasons we thought, and you know very well, why there should be a dividend. So we left it at that, and one of our members who's sitting here taking a video of me talking right now, wrote a white paper basically, a 4 or 5 page white paper with a lot of information gleaned from our excellent CCL research department, the household impact study, et cetera, tailored to his district. And we sent it in. And a long time went by. And then our liaison called at the office and said, so about that white paper that we sent in. And the staffer said, oh yeah, we're going to co-sponsor. Didn't we tell you? No, you didn't. He said, well, okay, let me just double check and make sure we've sent in the paperwork. And then he called back again and said, yes, we sent the paperwork in, we're going to be on the bill. And by the way, he's going to have a press conference and he wants you to be there. So do your homework. Do your homework and be ready. When you get asked hard questions, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Address those questions, as the other speaker said. Listen to what they're saying, address those questions. I just want to also add that behind that, there was a huge team effort from our chapter. Lots of postcards were gathered at tabling events, signed, delivered. People wrote letters to the editor. They got on radio programs. We got grassroots and grass tops endorsements and showed all that to the office. All of that stuff is important. And finally, we heard him on the radio not too long after, and he mentioned that he had talked to us, and he described us as a force to be reckoned with. So that's your goal.